Yo, to watch this video, you need to wear a mask. Just joking. In Christian scriptures, Matthew chapter 23, Jesus blasted the Jewish authorities as hypocrites for making stupid man-made rules to replace righteous and godly rules of conduct. But today, things are even worse in that way, as those who make unfair rules reside within every age, culture, gender, nationality, non-religion, profession, race, religion, and social class. Without proper rules, no society could function. Life would be intolerable. But some self-righteous people abuse that fact in order to create rules to control people for their own satisfaction. So most unrighteous rules are not complete nonsense, such as requiring everyone to wear a watermelon rind strapped to their head. Instead, most are a perversion of sensible rules, as those who make them can hide behind the claim of doing good. Now, we avoid driving the wrong way on a road for obvious reasons. We should also avoid going in through designated outdoors or out through indoors if we can't see who's behind them. That's to avoid knocking into someone and or blocking their path, or improperly using emergency exits. But in a Jewel food store, I needed a cart outside. An electric enter door was closest and propped open wide. I saw that nobody was around as the door was cranked open with glass door walls. Yet after exiting, an employee physically grabbed and reprimanded me, saying I can't do that. Nobody should sneeze into another's face for obvious reasons. In addition, extra precautions with masks were warranted during the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the pandemic ended, officially. And after, though, when just one person caught COVID in my senior living center, staff demanded we wear masks, including during in-house chapel service. Instead, using one's brain would simply have the infected person quarantined. Maybe have everyone tested too, but not destroy the ability to be edified in church due to faces being plugged up. After that was settled, the mask mandate was lifted, then reinforced after another case, then re-lifted, then re-reinforced, like a childish game of Simon Says. In public settings, I understand to never touch any food plates or utensils besides those I intend to eat with. But there's nothing wrong with serving yourself soup as long as you only touch the serving handle, not the other soup in the pot or the ladle. This is the procedure used at parties when guests serve themselves from punch bowls. But again, I was reprimanded in that senior living center for that. A third incident involved me simply putting my canvas bag on the food serving table. For that, I not only got corrected, but poked in the side for it. Since I'm a nice person, I complied. The wrong person might break your finger for that. Now, unless somebody puts a tote bag infested with bubonic plague or completely covered in shit on a table, or someone mistook the bag for food or actually eating the bag, there's no possible way to get sick from it. Some in my senior living so-called faith community are hypocrites, especially since some of them go to the gambling casino and engage in that sinful vice. There have even been a couple incidents of stealing. Back to the hypocrites in the time of Christ. They complained that Jesus and his disciples didn't wash their hands before eating. Matthew 15:2, Mark 7:1-5. Instead of complying, Jesus responded that their criticizers transgressed God's commandment, Matthew 15:3-9, Mark 7:6-13, and that eating with unwashed hands does not defile a man, Matthew 15:20. Everybody should know not to pick food off anyone's plate while they're sitting there or still in the restaurant or at a get-together. Yet my friend Jeff and I frequented a sit-down restaurant for Saturday takeout, as tables were generally filled. Jeff noted that sometimes people would order sizable plates of scrumptious food, but take off without finishing. So he introduced me to eating free food, which would otherwise be wasted. Ultimately, a restaurant worker became outraged, got in my face, and reprimanded me. I reacted, becoming more aggressive than he, and chased him off. On the flip side, lunch ladies have forced or tried to force children to eat food they threw in the garbage and which was sometimes spoiled, so as not to waste it. So, condemning the eating of abandoned food has nothing to do with sanitation or respecting those who left and won't come back. It's so you'll eat more than you would if you didn't eat off other plates, so they make more money. That's similar to movie theaters saying that you can't bring in outside food or drink, then tempting you with their overpriced food and drink. Once after finishing a movie, I had an urge to use the bathroom, and the theater hall bathroom was being cleaned. However, I entered and used it since I had no idea where another one was and which could be very far away. Could I have held it? Probably. Not so in the case of a girl with Crohn's disease, an intestinal and bowel condition. And I want to go back to the case where the guy was mad because I walked on his washed floor. But then with the girl with the bowel condition, the Crohn's disease is an intestinal bowel condition. She had an emergency though. As their store lacked a customer washroom, she continually begged to use the off-limits employee toilet. Her mother even produced a medical card for her. After the man continually refused her, she lost control of her bowels and defecated on herself. If it was me, I would have crapped all over the store floor instead. Now, most people understand that we should not trespass on someone's private yard. I wouldn't want strange people invading my privacy that way, and for safety reasons, as we don't want strangers coming up to our house unexpected. Also, many people traipsing through could wear a rut in the grass. However, while walking through an empty field as a shortcut, which consisted of nothing more than clumps of dirt, I encountered a no trespassing sign in the middle of it. I also saw a no trespassing sign on a hill I was walking on by a public park in another incident. In a third incident, there used to be railroad tracks running between lines of trees in my town. But the railroad went out of business and removed the tracks. This made for a good long pedestrian path, but the town then put up a no trespassing sign on it, blocking tell everybody you're not allowed anywhere. In all three cases, I either destroyed or dismantled the sign in reaction, as they were trespassing on others' freedom and playing God, as it is God's green earth, not theirs. Some have put no trespassing signs before subdivision entrances to say that everyone who doesn't live on those streets, that they're unwelcome anywhere there. Under Judaism, keeping the Sabbath day holy, which was on Saturday, required refraining from working on it and instead dedicating it to the Lord. That was important to help the Israelites put God first instead of idolizing money or the work of their hands. Outdoor jobs were common, including corn shucking, and such jobs are an aggregate of shorter actions such as plucking individual husks. That's granted. But the individual actions of Jesus and his disciples of plucking a couple ears of corn because they were hungry did not violate the spirit of the Sabbath. It would never have led to taking the day away from being dedicated to God or putting money making first. Matthew 12:1-2, Mark 2:23-24, Luke 6:1-2. But the authorities wrongly took that as representative of working a job on the Sabbath and scolded them. Instead of complying, Jesus called out their hypocrisy. An institutional rule that overlooks justice is the bail system. Instead, those who are likely guilty of serious crimes should be held without bail in the interest of public safety. If they're later found not guilty, they should be compensated for it. The financial greed within the justice system culminated in their allowing former football star O.J. Simpson, who brutally murdered two people, to be permanently freed from being incarcerated for it, since he paid a massive amount of money in a civil suit. He still had more money than most people after the lawsuit. Should we obey crazy rules of minor convenience to please others and make peace? I say no. That's because those who make such rules seeing that people readily comply with them may in consequence create ever more oppressive rules to the point where such rules create great damage and harm, and such rules distract attention away from righteous precepts. What can be done about insane rules? 1. Defy all such rules if doing so doesn't result in any personal harm. 2. Perhaps speak out against nonsense rules and try to elicit change. 3. Or avoid people and situations with these rules as much as possible. If it got to the point where everyone around me was like this, I'd rather be a hermit and keep my dignity and humanity intact. 4. Cut off all friendship and collaboration with anyone who tries to bind unfair rules on others. Those who get their jollies from controlling others are no good. 5. Don't be one of them. Do an honest self-examination.